Welcome to Season 4, Episode 7 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. This is the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix race review. I am your host, James, along with all of my wonderful co-hosts. We have Deanna, Andy, and John. Full crew in the house to talk about one hell of a season opener. Andy, I've been waiting for this moment for quite some time. What a fucking day. How are you feeling? I have a feeling not quite as good as me.
Probably not as good as you are based on current race results. But hey, you know what? I mean, as a race, as itself, I thought this was very entertaining. The formula obviously works. I think we can say that. We can confirm that. And we've got different players in the mix. So as a season goes, this one's a good setup for what hopefully is to come.
It makes you feel better, Andy. I'm feeling kind of down because my Ferrari hoodie still hasn't arrived in the mail, so I wore the only red one I've got. So I'm repping Ferrari red with Chicago Bulls, I guess, today.
Did you get the McDonald's one?
I sure did. I'm going to wear it every episode. I can't wait. Deanna, from very close to St. Peter's University, the prestigious St. Peter's, on an epic Final Four run. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing great. It's been a fantastic day. Great F1 race. Great IndyCar race. Duke's heads in Sweet 16. I'm always in.
Well, hopefully I'm joining you on the Sweet 16, watching Texas as we record here. So hopefully the good times just keep on rolling in the Chronister house here. John, our resident road warrior. Weren't sure if you're going to make it tonight. Glad to see you. How you doing, pal?
Doing well. 1,000-mile road trip. It's always fun. That part was fun. The vomiting 3-year-old in the back was not so fun. So it made for a hell of a long trip. But
were you guys experiencing some porpoising or something?
Yeah, I think a little motion sickness. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Got to retune the floor of that Tesla there.
I was on autopilot, just cruising, and they just started up chucking. So the joys of road tripping with family. But yeah, glad to be here. Fun night. My Carolina boys are going on as well. Somehow they blew a 25-point lead and had to go to overtime. But hey, knocked out Baylor, so that's good. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm surprised they're here this long. Honestly, they don't deserve to be really. Nope. But hey, we're still in the mix. So maybe we can be a Cinderella team this year, as bad as we are.
I hope not.
But our season was complete as soon as we took out Coach K in the final, his final home game. So that's really all that mattered, for my season. But
and then we lost by 20 to Virginia Tech. So
does it?
All right, before this breaks out into a college basketball review, I'm going to go ahead and remind everybody
that'll be the Outlap NCAA podcast will be coming out next weekend.
Yeah,
we slam dunk it there,
I'm sure. So I just need to remind everybody before we get started, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. You can check out our link tree on our Twitter profile page. Please do us a solid and click the like and subscribe on YouTube, or click the 5-star button if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any podcast app that has some sort of rating system. It really helps us out. You can email the show at chatnow@outlapf1.com. You can check out our wonderful website at www.outlapf1.com that I haven't quite touched yet, so it's still working perfectly, but I do have to update some things after tonight, so we'll see how that goes. You can always check out our F1 for Beginners episode back on episode 4, so just a few episodes ago. And we have Relapsed with Deanna, who actually already released her Bahrain race reaction video. Deanna, I watched it. I loved it. It was only a few hours after the race, but it just brought back all these good memories again. So thank you for that.
Anytime.
And Andy, Outlap F1 Nation stepping up. What can you tell us about that? How can people get involved?
Please check out the support page in our show notes. And as again, thank you to everybody who continues to contribute. Cody Walsh, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Richard Cole, Travis Colby, Timothy Brown, Hillary LaRose, Mary Brown, Jonathan Scott, and Matt Polanski from the Red Sector MotoGP podcast. He had himself a very early morning covering the Indonesian MotoGP race. In a bit of a deluge, so I'm sure. Shout out to him and the MotoGP and the Red Sector MotoGP podcast.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to watching the race yet, but I did see Mark Marquez in that high side, which was pretty insane.
Did not race today because of that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That boy, yeah,
He walked it off, but then I guess he had to go to the hospital to get checked out. And then
They did not declare him fit.
I hope for
Hopefully
his
he's
sake
good.
that he calls it a career while he still has functioning limbs, because that boy has been broken in half on so many occasions right now. I mean, he's still, a badass in every right, other form of the word, but still, it's just insane how brutal his body has become.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the doctor and how long he made it without having a serious injury or losing his life. All right, so then one other way you can help out the show is go to Manscaped, use code OUTLAP, OUTLAP, all one word, 20% off and free shipping. Now that all that is done, we can move on to the headline of the day. And I'm going to start off with Andy. What do you got for us?
Give me that battle for the lead the entire season. I thought that was absolutely inject that into my veins. Move, counter moves, regardless who the participants were. Max versus Charles. That was epic. Best highlight of the day for me.
I couldn't disagree with that, Andy, even if you paid me. Deanna, what do you got for me for your headline?
F1 is back. And so far, so good. I think I was personally nervous at the tires because they wanted to be able to push longer on a certain set of tires. I thought we were going to kind of get nailed on one stops, especially with going on for the hardest 3 compounds this weekend. And we got a pretty much guaranteed 3 stop. So that, I think, bodes well for strategy as the season goes on, as well as the actual racing itself. After this weekend, it looks good. I have high hopes. So, fantastic start to the season. F1's back.
Yeah, when Carlos Sainz radioed in and was like, it might be that 3-stopper, I was like, wait, what? that might be a thing? And then I think, I don't know, did the entire grid end up doing 3-stop? And there may have been a couple people that did the 2-stop, but
nobody made a 2-stop.
Yeah.
Besides, the safety car at the end almost assured 3 stops.
Yeah,
for a
true.
lot of people.
Besides a rain affected race, I mean, I can't think of a 3-stopper since I've started watching F1.
We haven't had a 3-stopper since the Hypersoft days.
Yeah.
And I've missed it, honestly.
And I didn't realize how much anxiety pit stops gave me until today. Because then it's when your driver's in first and he pits, the anxiety was through the roof every time, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with how Ferrari handled all of their pit stops today.
I mean, who would have thought we'd see the day where Ferrari was outclassing Red Bull on pit stops?
I know that Leclerc.
Now, nobody was as bad as Mercedes. They're averaging 5-second pit stops.
Yeah. But, is that your headline of the day, John? Or
no. My headline today is what's the phrase? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, as 100% of my hate is now towards Red Bull, and it has nothing to do with the season finale last year, so don't blow me up in the comments. Just has all to do from just the nonstop shit talking last year. I'm just over it and over Christian Horner. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That would be Ferrari. So because of that, I couldn't be more thrilled for the Tifosi, for James, for all the parties in red. Deanna, now she's officially on the bandwagon for sure.
No,
I couldn't be more thrilled.
She looked pretty excited.
It looks like it's gonna be a while before my boys competing again. That car is dog shit. So it made me. I couldn't have been more happy with the way today turned out in hindsight. So yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. It feels like that'd be me saying, if the Cardinals and the White Sox played each other, it's like, well, no, I'm going to root for the Cardinals now because I hate the White Sox more. It's like, no, I want both teams.
Let's put it this way: I just like the
both.
Cowboys, but if they were playing the Packers, I would 100% cheer for the Cowboys every single time, die hard for the Cowboys. So in that situation, you guys, the Ferrari is the Cowboys, and Red Bull is the Packers, and you know how I feel about that team. So if it means I got to cheer for the Cowboys the whole season to put the Packers where they belong, then cowboy it up. Let's go.
I don't know.
So
I guess I could see it that way if I had some Cardinals or White Sox hats and shirts in my closet, but I don't. So
I still hate Ferrari. But again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And in this situation, we are now friends with the Red Boys. So at least for 2022.
Interesting. We'll see how this plays out. My headline of the day wasn't really anything for a little while. I was kind of speechless. Great day at my house. To see a 1-2 like that. Deanna said F1 is back. Yeah, F1's back, but Ferrari is back, and it feels so good. And I feel like it's going to be a great season. And some of that racing that we saw between Leclerc and Verstappen that we'll get into a little bit later was just pure class. And I love that they could race that tightly, that closely, no incidents. After the race, Max Verstappen's congratulating Leclerc. It's like
it's
early.
early.
I can't believe how nice Max Verstappen could be. It's almost as if all the issues
it's early.
May be caused by somebody else.
Listen to Andy, please. It's early.
He was shaking Lewis Hamilton's hand last year for a good part of the year until
for almost half the
British
season.
Grand Prix.
They had a nice little bromance going on, and we saw how that turned out. So, yeah, just give it a few more races.
I can't wait.
I think it's just a miracle that no carbon went flying today between the two of them. But
I was surprised at how
that excellent
most of the
racecraft,
grid
Jack.
actually behaved.
All right, let's go ahead and get into qualifying, and for that, I'll hand it over to Andy. Do your thing, sir.
All right, so going out in Q1 in position number 20 was Nicholas Latifi. P19 was Lance Stroll. P18, Daniel Ricciardo. P17, Nico Hulkenberg. P16 was Yuki Tsunoda. Advancing into Q2, but going no farther, in P15 was Zhou Guanyu. P14, Alex Albon. P13, Lando Norris. P12, career best qualifying, Mick Schumacher. Nicely done. And P11, Esteban Ocon. The top 10 from 10 to 1. In P10 was Pierre Gasly. P9, George Russell. P8, Fernando Alonso. P7, probably the star of qualifying. Well, co-star, really. Kevin Magnussen. P6, in my opinion, both these guys, the star of qualifying, Valtteri Bottas. Hello, how you doing? P5, Lewis Hamilton. P4, Sergio Perez. P3, Carlos Sainz. P2, Max Verstappen. And in P1, with a lap time of 1 minute 30 seconds, .558, was Charles Leclerc.
I will have to say, that pole time, I think that it was like 1.3 off of last year, and that's on a step harder tire. So I think, especially by the end of this year, we're going to see lap times being set yet once again.
With the 100%. Learning curve
even during
vertical,
preseason testing, we were only about a little over a second on low fuel runs. So yeah, it's going to happen.
So what are you guys more surprised by, excited by? K-Mag's P7 or Bottas's P6? I'll give it to you first, Deanna.
K-Mag's P7, come on. I mean, Haas has just been an absolutely dismal state for the past few years between Rich Energy and the whole Mazepin fiasco. So I think just to getting Kevin Magnussen back on the team, it already seemed like Haas in general, spirits had been lifted. But for them to come out and have that performance after just kind of dwindling the back for the past few years, and everybody is just happy on the team. I'm happy to recognize it as the American team again. It's so fantastic. And Kevin being a guy that thought his F1 career was over just a couple weeks ago, to come back and do this is awesome.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Andy or John, either one of you guys have a different opinion on that, or are we all riding Team K-Mag there?
No, the ass man can do whatever. Yeah, it's all K-Mag today.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Magnussen thing was just, that was fun to watch. I mean, Gunther Steiner's face, I mean, to see the elation, the genuine elation with those, what that team has gone through over the course of the last 3 seasons, really, even before all the Mazepin stuff, to have that all kind of lifted off of them. I was proud to be an American F1 fan for today because of that. It's good stuff.
And to think that he's only been around here for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, whatever it is. Obviously didn't do any kind of mid-season or off-season testing, no sim work, no anything like that. Really got thrown into the deep end, brand new car. And he pulled like a Hulkenberg type-esque return race. So pretty damn amazing to see where they came out with it. It reminded me of that original race way back in Australia.
Yeah, and one position back from their best ever finish today. So, I mean, well done. And no pit stop gremlins, no nothing. There was fully executed all the way around. If Schumacher doesn't spin, they probably get both cars in the points today.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, Andy, because every single time they were pitting today, I was just having flashbacks of wheels falling off.
Anxiety for a pit stop.
So yeah,
And
thank God they made through that.
That spin, I mean, clearly Schumacher's learned from Vettel, but then extended to it because he pulled off the straight up 360 and just kept going.
Beautiful.
That was badass.
It was like a Fast and the Furious type movie. Like spun it, grabbed the gear,
that,
and
like a figure skating jump. I mean, like he landed the triple axel.
And I mean,
on that
with what they said about the I don't want to call it a new rule, but with what the race director came out and said at the beginning of the race weekend, do you think if Ocon would have held up there and let Schumacher in front of him, he would have never had the 5-second penalty if he gave the spot right back up? Is that kind of what they're saying with the spirit of that?
It might have. I mean, it's kind of, if you think you should give the position back, give it back, and then maybe we won't refer it. But once he didn't, that's what the race director decided to do.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened.
I think there were kind of mixed feelings about it when it came out, but so far I'm on board. I think it's like if you don't give it back immediately, then it goes pretty much directly to the stewards, and they get to assess it. So there's not all of that argument back and forth and all that kind of mess. The teams can still say something that goes to the stewards, but it's not directly impacting the race director. So far, so good for me, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you there.
Before we move on, can we talk about track limits real fast?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was under the understanding that they were going to be strictly enforced, and the white line was the track limits, and we had 2 Red Bull affiliated teams, drivers, go clearly off the track on their fast laps, and it wasn't even mentioned, wasn't even investigated. So
I think there were quite a few cars that did. There were a couple that got taken, like Joe had one, and I watched it on board later, and it didn't look that egregious. So yeah, it's just frustrating because you think that the rules are going to be clear now, and they aren't. And then I only heard, I think, Lewis get a reprimand today, or like a warning.
Yeah, he did at some point.
But I don't know.
Well, wasn't for the Checo one, didn't he set that time within his next time that he set was faster anyway? Or are you just saying because they never even brought it up?
I could be wrong.
Well,
I was under the assumption
that
that was on his fast lap.
I think the only lap time that got deleted from qualifying was, I think, Zhao's time.
Yeah, and it was a blatant off track. It's just frustrating. We're here. I mean, I feel like it was like 2 hours later. We're talking about, okay, white line is the limit. It's very clear. Okay, everybody understands. And then it's like we just forgot again. So it's just a little frustrating that we're already seeing inconsistencies. But especially in qualifying, the race, we obviously give a lot of reprimands, and you got multiple warnings, and you get your flag and everything else. But quali should be pretty cut and dry, either on or off, and your lap time is either there or not there. So
yeah, I mean, it's a brand new team. I'll give them a couple more races to iron it out. But we'll see. Yeah, that was slightly disappointing, though, after thinking that we were kind of on our way to having something being very clear, and it just is now a little ambiguous.
Probably not going to be a problem next week, considering we're going.
Oh yeah, true. Track limits the wall.
So,
he DNF, so he missed track limits. It's all good.
There you go.
There is a penalty.
Yeah,
that being a few $1 million and half your car. So.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the back markers. We'll start talking about our race breakdown here. So with that, we've got places 20 through 13. Pierre Gasly finishing in 20th. Max Verstappen in 19th. Sergio Perez in 18th. Nico Hulkenberg in 17th. He was the first of the actual finishers, driving a Mercedes power unit. Nicholas Latifi ahead of him, also in a Mercedes power unit. Lando Norris ahead of him in 15th, also in a Mercedes power unit. Danny Ricciardo in 14th, of course, Mercedes power unit. And then Alex Albon in 13th with the Mercedes power unit. So I think overarching thought on the back markers, obviously we have 3 Red Bull powered cars there that just didn't finish the race with potential fuel pump issues, it sounds like. But everything else was a Mercedes. So is the Mercedes the worst power unit on the grid?
Doesn't look great at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to wonder if this new fuel with the new E10 additive or whatever it is has just stunted some of the Mercedes straight line speed. I mean, just looking at the speed traps, I don't think there was a Mercedes car anywhere near even the top 10. I mean, maybe the works team. John, you can back me up on that one if you know, but I don't. It's very correlative that at least here, Mercedes power unit teams were all on the back foot.
Mhm.
It's interesting too because they
and
were
13 seconds away from the next closest.
Well,
finisher.
that was because of the safety car and the new race. You want to talk about new race director changing things? He did not let them all catch back up. So if they when they would come in and pit,
I didn't notice that.
somebody didn't get the hurry up fast enough, and they only made it like halfway around when they were able to unlap themselves. So that's why you see Stroll with 45 seconds, and then or it was Schumacher 32. Stroll was the first one of those that was able to unlap himself.
Well, A, it's a note then that there were the only 6 cars that got lapped. But B, I think we talked about that rule change earlier. It's in the except after the message comes out, they don't have to catch back up. I think that's what that was. Yeah.
Correct.
And it worked out well for Schumacher because even despite his gamble, the worst really he was ever going to finish. Where did he end up?
11th.
He was 11th.
Yeah, altogether. So
he only would have maybe finished 12th.
Yeah, so it worked out well in his favor. It was a gamble worth taking. It didn't exactly play out, but yeah, I mean, but going back to Mercedes, it was interesting because they were very, very vocal and proud of their accomplishments with the fuel system in the off season. It was a lot of tweets about that they had gained all this horsepower and yada yada, and overcome the renewable fuels requirement. So obviously they were bluffing, or everyone else just did a better job at it. Because they seem slow. I mean, the worst team has a whole plethora of other issues that we can get to later. But overall, the motor, I don't know if they're worried about reliability, if there's something going on, if they're just not turned up. Because in practice, even the works team had, some decent speed, and you could tell that they were pushing things a little bit harder. But it's like they don't feel confident in sustaining that over 57, 58 laps, whatever it is. So, that'll be interesting to see moving forward.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. In the offseason, I'm pretty sure it was Mercedes was the first to release like their fire-up video, which included some FaceTime video of Toto Wolff illegally FaceTiming while driving, which they still haven't investigated, which is unfortunate. But they were excited about the power unit early on. It just seems like it's not there yet. Something I enjoy seeing. But I think the thing I feel bad saying, but I'm even more excited to see is that Red Bull ended up with 0 points. And the fuel pump isn't something that they make or develop. Every team gets the same one. It's a standard part, but kind of concerning that 3 of the 4 Red Bull powered teams now didn't finish today. And I haven't seen anything about Pierre Gasly, but Deanna, that's your boy. So a pretty scary scene there. And it real close to where Romain Grosjean had some fire issues as well. So walk us through that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I'm still not sure what the issue was exactly. I imagine it was more than a fuel pump, seeing how that thing went up in flames. But he was doing well all day. He pretty much was kind of had, I think, a pretty much lonely race. Stayed in 8th consistently all the way across. Definitely would have finished there. So a little unfortunate. Would have been solid points for him, especially because it seems like I would put the Haas Alpine above maybe where the AlphaTauri is at this point. So I think he was doing well with the car he had. But if it blows up, it blows up. That's the end of that.
It's interesting too that like the way it blew up, because he lost all power. The dash and everything went completely blank. I'm trying to figure out in my head like what component would have caused an instant fire and electrical loss at the same time, unless whatever blew was so spectacular that it took out the control, electronics, and everything else all simultaneously.
It looked like
which may be what happened.
Yeah, because they showed a shot of like some of that paintwork just like melting off of the car, as they were trying to rescue it. So whatever failed remarkably. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so Andy, no more avoiding it here. McLaren with just. Walk us through where you're at right now, because it's not looking so hot after only one race. Well, McLaren off on the back foot for sure here.
Yeah, tough day at the office, no doubt. Just kind of overall, and I think the biggest thing after watching all the onboards, slow speed corners. Man, oh man, slow speed corners. Turn 1 and turn 10, that's where they were getting killed. Absolutely murdered today. Both Norris and Ricciardo only finished in front of Norris basically because Lando pitted late. to try to put a set of softs on, and they couldn't catch all the way back up to the queue, so it didn't really matter. So, I mean, it was what it was. We knew, especially I think after Saturday, they were definitely not on it. And that proved all the way through to Sunday. I mean, all you can do, pick up. The good news is they don't have to run anymore in Bahrain, which I think will serve Lando very happy, because I think he's done more laps around that circuit than anybody. But yeah, move forward and hope for. I mean, the Jeddah track has high mid-speed corners, so maybe they'll show a little better there. Because otherwise, they got to really start looking at major upgrades, major changes, and that's going to take at least 5 or 6 races.
But how do you feel about the engine going into that race? That Mercedes engine doesn't look.
That didn't help. No, I mean, if that's down on power, that just compounds it.
Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, Lando's team radio he was giving everything that he had, and he was literally many times going, guys, this is all I got. I don't know what else you want me to do. So, bad day.
Good day. Not good days for McLaren right now. John, here's your chance to dunk on Red Bull a little bit if you'd like.
Which part?
Have at it.
I mean, listen, they both drove a hell of a good day. It was a fun battle. It blew my mind, honestly, how hooked up Max's car looked throughout this race, especially in the braking zones. I mean, to make multiple, what I would consider insanely long distance, come from behind attempts, and to be able to stick it, to show just how well that car and how stable that car is. I think in most situations, especially in a car, and even in that inside line, especially on the front straight, is quite bumpy. To go through that bumps and see that kind of magnitude of sparks and still be able to break that late and stick it and make it the corner was pretty shocking. That car is definitely something that Ferrari's going to have to watch out for, without a doubt. But I mean, they both drove great races. I think Max did a lot of complaining, a lot of bitching today about his warm up laps or his out laps. There was a lot of chatter back and forth on the race broadcast if that could have been the case. He was complaining about that during Saturday's qualifying too. It was a pretty vocal radio message saying he's never going to listen to the team ever again, and they need to shut up and stop telling him how to do his out laps because he's killing his tires and yada yada. So after last year, I'm enjoying seeing Max being a little frustrated. It kind of is bringing a smile to my face. So.
In Verstappen's slight defense, he has ignored team orders before and has worked out in his favor.
That's true. That is true, for sure. But no, I mean, like they both drove phenomenally. I think Checo, I think pretty handily would have been able to hold off Hamilton there at the end. Obviously, that was a weird situation as well. I mean, it was clearly, everything just locked up mid-corner. You knew the way it came out, even before I could see it was an engine, even before they said something, you knew it was something mechanical, just the way it spun. Because it's not like he lit it up or anything like that. So,
and the fact that he never even tried to put it back into
gear. Yeah, there was no movement, there was no anything. I was like, okay, yeah, he's done. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, they both drove great races. Max drove a hell of a good race and definitely deserved a P2. I think I don't think it was smart how aggressive he was coming out, making 3+ attempts at Leclerc on that second stint there. I think was, on tires that were showing extremely high deg, was probably asking a little bit too much. Playing that long game probably would have worked out maybe a little bit better in his favor, but I think they had good strategy. The undercut was working out well. I mean, I think if you're Red Bull, you got to be happy. I mean, if the failures aren't even your part, it's kind of bad luck, a bad day at the office. But you easily got the first-ish fastest car on the grid. And next week should be more of the same, I would think. Both these motors seem to be pretty much on par. I would see I'd maybe put the edge on for Max next week, just given his performance at Saudi Arabia and how well he did at that track, taking away all the drama that came from last year. at that race, but I expect more of the same for sure. And Sergio seemed like he and Sainz should be a nice competitive battle throughout the year. I think you'll have a lot of trading off. So yeah, I mean, can't fault them too much. It just made me happy to see them parking their cars and throwing helmets and things like that today. So happy to gave me a little smile in a much needed day for sure.
I bet it did. To round out the back markers, Alex Albon in his return to F1, a nice 13th place finish, which he should be pretty happy with in the Williams there. All right, so we'll move up to the midfield now, starting with P12, Lance Stroll, P11, Mick Schumacher, good finish for him. In 10th, I've been practicing this name since the preview, Zhou Guan Fernando Alonso in 9th, Yuki Tsunoda in 8th, Esteban Ocon in 7th, Valtteri Bottas in 6th, Kevin K-Mag Magnussen in 5th place, and George Russell in 4th. Andy, where do you want to start here?
With the positives, let's talk about Magnussen one more time. I mean, that was just a great overall race, on the pace the whole time, and beautifully executed by the Haas team today. Good strategy, good calls. Like I said, there was nothing better than to watch the weight come off of Gunther Steiner's shoulders that he's been carrying around for however many years he's been carrying that around. America has an F1 team. It's Haas F1, and go K-Mag, man. That was just fun.
Yeah. And I don't think this is anywhere close to peak K-Mag, what we're going to get this season. Because, again, he's only been in there for the second test. He had a couple big mistakes in turn 1 throughout the course of the race and still finished P5. So just excited to see where that season goes.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see Mick make it into the points. Hopefully next week. That'll be good to see. Let's move on to Zhou Guan Yu. His F1 debut in an Alfa Romeo and steals a point. So what do you think about his day today, Deanna?
Fantastic. I was kind of expecting him probably to be a bit better than Latifi, but closer to that level, especially straight out of the gate. I think that Alfa Romeo is a good car, though, which is definitely a big benefit. But he was making overtakes all day. He was getting into scraps with people. And, I mean, he kept up with his teammate for a little bit there. Bottas did end up way up the field. But, I mean, yeah, for first race, it's impressive, super impressive. Good job, Joe.
Yeah, for a guy who's in there, a little bit of a pay driver type situation there. A lot of funding, but it looks like he's got the goods at least one race into the season.
I just hope he doesn't go the Yuki Tsunoda route because Tsunoda looked amazing.
I was just about to say that.
Year.
It's a very good point.
Started off with a high and kind of went down from there. So, yeah, hopefully not a repeat.
Very, very good point. So let's move on to his teammate, Valtteri Bottas, who gave me a good chuckle to start the race because it clearly looked like Bottas was going to Bottas. Drop it through the standings pretty quickly to begin a race. But he actually fought back, which is un-Bottas-like. He did have some trouble a couple times in the race passing people, but that's just typical Bottas things. I'd have to say he's extremely excited with a 6th. I mean, how much more could you have asked for from an Alfa Romeo, John?
Yeah, no, I think he's quite happy. I think he's got a lot to prove this year, just being on his own and the team being geared around him. Is his opportunity to kind of shine. He's not anybody's shadows. Had a hell of a good qualifying, and the race start was not his finest moment. But I mean, definitely a nice recovery. I think for him, it's still going to come down to, is he willing to get his elbows out and, kind of, as Danny Rick would say, lick the stamp and send it. That's always kind of been his Achilles heel is the willingness to take that last step. He's probably gonna have to learn in the fire of how to do that in that midfield. But yeah, I think if you offer Mayo, either driver, you got to be absolutely thrilled, just considering, again, another team based on where they were last year to come out and steal a point, steal some points, double points in there. It's weird. Like, when's the last time Ferrari was leading the drivers in Constructors Championship? When's the last time Alfa Romeo was, not nearly as long, but it's been a while since Alfa Romeo has had double points. It's just been, it's going to be a weird year, I think.
It's been a while since the last RedBull double DNF, 2019.
Yeah. So it's gonna be one of those years. 22 and 2 is gonna make things up.
Yeah, I
think Bottas got to be thrilled with how it ended up, and had he had a better start, who knows? It'd be interesting to see, could he have mixed it up with the Mercs a little bit longer if he had a better start and kind of played on there? Pace-wise, it may not be that dissimilar on race pace, but and they might certainly have a power advantage next week, so that may be an interesting battle with Hamilton and Bottas for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping that situation gets spicy at least a few times this year. It'll be fun to watch. Andy, so speaking of double points finishers, we got Alpine with a 9th and a 7th for Alonso and Ocon. What do you think about Alpine's day today and kind of where they shake out in the standings?
I mean, they kind of ran together most of the afternoon. It looked like I would see one pink and then two pink, and I'd go, okay, there's where the Alpines are. And then that kind of late safety car kind of shuffled them around a little bit. But, good result for Esteban Ocon. That's probably punching above where they probably legitimately are right now. And Fernando Alonso, solid points again, P9. That Alpine's not a world beater by any stretch. At least I don't think so. But it's nice to know that they've got some genuine pace and can pull out a result when the opportunity affords itself. So I think that team should feel very happy with the results today.
So I was asking
Go ahead.
I was asking my buddy this, but I wanted to get your guys' opinion. The fact that they were running nose to tail for so much of this race, is that good on Ocon? Is that bad on Alonso? Like, is there any, is Ocon stepping up above his, punching above his weight limit? Did Ocon or Alonso just have an off day? Like, are they that similar on pace? Like, what are you guys thinking right now? I know we're only one race in, but
I think what you saw here is, were you in the right equipment at the right time? And if you had a Ferrari power unit, that definitely helped you. And if you didn't, you were kind of the rest of the rest, and they were the best of the rest that didn't have a Ferrari power unit today. So I think that was a reflection. I think it was definitely, it felt a lot like, until that late safety car, a Noah's Ark type race where it was 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 for a good chunk of it. And you just kind of saw that's kind of where Alpine is. 9th and 10th, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, depending on how it shakes out.
I like the analogy, Andy. It's the first time I think I've ever heard that in a racing analogy. But
Noah's Ark race, I like it.
I swear I heard that on a podcast, but I'll
year.
claim originality for it if you guys are going to give it to me.
Anybody else? Well, I guess George Russell finishing in 4th. So you'd have to think when he signed that contract, he'd be disappointed if you told him his first race he was going to be in 4th. But you got to figure he's probably pretty happy with that finish. Would you agree or disagree with that, John?
Yeah, I mean, based on his post-race stuff, he seemed happy with where they finished. I mean, both he and Lewis, without a doubt, were very clear that, they scored much higher than they should have today, and they were definitely blessed by the retirements of the Red Bull. There was a decent pace gap between the two of them, and I'm sure that will kind of come down as the season goes on and they continue to get adjusted. But I mean, they're miles off. They're at one point they're losing a second a lap to the Ferraris, so they've clearly got some work to do. But yeah, George seemed overall happy. I think if you would have told him Friday that they're going to finish, in P4, I think he would have laughed at you. Same with Lewis in P3. So I think they were just blessed. The key words coming out of both their interviews was damage limitations, and for sure they managed to accomplish that. They didn't do themselves any favor with their pit stops. Were god awful, atrocious all across the board. Their strategy going on the hards when they did was questionable. Leaving Russell out there as long as they did on the hards was questionable. So they definitely benefited from Gasly's issues for sure.
Bit of a get out of jail free type race.
Yeah, and honestly, Mercedes probably needed one of those. It's they probably needed something to bounce their way this weekend just to kind of keep their somewhat of their heads up. It's going to be probably a rough first quarter of the season. They're keeping their lips shut on if there's any upgrades coming. So it'll be interesting to see. And there's also been talks like, do they revert back to the other package, the side pod package? But either way, I mean, from watching the onboards of both of them, the car is just god awful. I I mean, the balancing, the porpoising is one thing. It's disgusting just how bad it is. The car is so unstable in the braking zones, and then it's just plowing the corners. Pretty much every single slow speed corner, they're having to make multiple adjustments in to get the car to actually rotate. And so Saudi Arabia might be between power issues and turning issues. And I don't remember how bump was that. Do you guys remember if that track was abrasive or not? I know it was paved, 2 days before we raced there last year. But I don't remember. I don't recall it being. It should be. I don't know how it's. We'll see how it weathered in the desert over the last few months. Yeah. But it may very well be a painful weekend. I think P3 and P4 will be quite the accomplishment if they manage to do that next week.
Yeah, Andy, did you get a chance to watch Ted Kravitz's notebook yet?
Yeah,
I know you usually watch that because I thought I saw somebody tweet or quote part of it. Something about him mentioning upgrades not being available to Imola.
Yeah, so what he was speculating, and it was kind of half speculation, half kind of logic based on where the schedule is. He was talking about Mercedes, and he was saying how, okay, even if you ordered an upgraded part today, when would you legit get a chance to see it? Well, we're going to Jeddah next week. That's probably a logistical impossibility. From then you're going to Australia. Well, that advanced freight is probably already there. So that's a logistical impossibility. So you're down talking Miami is going maybe 5 weeks before you could legitimately test, get approved a new floor to help with the porpoising, to help with that, with all the other stuff to get on the car. And that's when I think you're going to I think Miami will probably be your first real chance. It's usually always Spain where we see the cavalcade of upgrades. I wonder if it may shift a little bit to Miami, especially it being a new circuit.
And being that it's going to have to go again across the pond to get there, I mean, that's just going to add to this logistical issue.
And that's where this
much harder to get parts to Miami than will be to Spain. Yeah. So if they're going to do something, they got to get on it like now. If they have any shot of even Miami being a realistic possibility. So yeah, it's going to be a rough first quarter, I think. And that, who knows what happens with the engine one way or the other. If that's all they've got, then they're in deep shit from an engine standpoint. So,
well, what I don't know is Bahrain the off, or is Bahrain a harbinger of things to come, especially power unit wise? Like, are we going to see different tracks be more favorable to other power units? Is Alpine going to show up at a certain track and have a good day on one because that track suits their package better? I think that there is a definite correlation between straight line speed and the downforce being generated by the floors, which is not because Mercedes is down on that. It's not allowing the Mercedes powered cars to dig into those slow speed corners. Because what you were saying, John, that's the same thing that was going on in McLaren. Could not dig into turn 1 to save their life, could not dig into turn 10 to save their life. And you just watched the onboard of everyone else just getting a better result from it.
Yeah, they were losing multiple tenths in that one corner every single lap after lap. So, yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't even talked about brake. A lot of teams are having brake issues. It's going to be interesting to see, can teams get that figured out? Cooling in general, I've watched a lot of videos on the Mercedes side pods or lack thereof. I still don't exactly understand how they're cooling that damn thing and not blowing up. It seems to be a mechanical wonder in that regard, but it obviously doesn't make it fast yet. So, as we go into hotter temperatures, we go to, Austria, things like that, where we always push on temps. They've had issues there before. So it'll be, if you're a Mercedes fan like me, you're hoping that, they just had a little fear on reliability. Maybe something just didn't look right leading up to things or in testing. And so they had it turned down a little bit. That's all you can hope for. If not, they need to do like what they did at the end of last year, just to start throwing new motors in every race, taking the engine penalty and, pretty much burning it down race after race, because that's going to be their only chance to kind of stick with this thing if that's what they've got. So.
I don't know if it's completely representative, but just as comparison, 2021 Bahrain, the top 8 finishers were all from Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari.
That's telling.
So if that is any indication of the season, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and look at the timing now. Yeah, quite the opposite story this year.
All right, so let's go ahead and move into our podium finishers. Been waiting all show for this part. Let's talk Lewis Hamilton first. Andy, definitely a shock podium for Lewis Hamilton, I'd say. Definitely didn't really see this coming. He had some nice value on him to finish on the podium, but I didn't take it because I didn't think it was going to happen, and I didn't want to root for it, to be honest. So what do you think about Lewis's day? And ended up with podium number, however many he's got now, 100-something.
It was 100-something plus or whatever. I mean,
38 or something like that.
Who's counting?
I mean, it adds to the...
Not us, apparently.
Yeah, not us, but it adds to the counting stats for those who are who want to check that out for one Lewis Hamilton. I mean, I thought kind of his race and Russell's for a large extent was kind of a lonely race. They were kind of in their own little island. They weren't really necessarily engaged with the Ferraris or the Red Bulls, but they were far enough away from the rest of the midfield to where they were at least stable there. Despite the lack of good pit stops and some of the kind of dodgy strategy that they pulled on with Russell there. But, I mean, he was by far the biggest benefactor of the two Red Bull failures on the last couple of laps there. So, he gets a podium. It's probably punching above where that car is right now. I would tend to agree with that, but you take them when you get them.
Yeah,
183rd podium for Lewis Hamilton.
They're definitely a very, very clear third right now. Not touching top two, not really close to anybody else. I think, if there's an issue, at least at the beginning of the season here, with a Ferrari or a Red Bull, they're definitely the team that will pick up the pieces.
Yeah, a very lonely race, though, for both of them, for sure. In their own little island, you're watching the onboards, and there's nobody
around them
between them. So...
Anything else for Lewis?
No, I think he was as surprised as anybody to be up there.
All right, so let's take a look. Let's see who finished second. Looks like Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari. And first, would you look at that? Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. A 1-2, first one since 2019 in Singapore, where Charles Leclerc
for the Bahrain 2019 race that he didn't win.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was going through my head a little bit, and I saw somebody else mention it on Twitter too. But I'm glad that team radio wasn't played, and I switched from Leclerc's on board to Lewis's because I was annoyed that they weren't showing Lewis chase down. I think it was Checo at the time on the broadcast for some reason, so I switched the onboard. So
even the announcers were saying that.
Yeah.
Even the main
he's like, I really want to see this right now. And they're not. I was waiting for like Stroll to pop out on the screen. But yeah, Charles made the joke at the end. He's like, "Oh, I think I have engine trouble or something." I'm like, "I didn't hear that live. I would have freaked out." But
and then he goes, "Just a joke." That was Eddie was crossing the line, though. So I mean, even if it would have blown up, he still would have finished the race.
And his whole swerving was a little bit too much for me. I was like, "Dude, just cross the finish line." I'm freaking out right now. This is too much. But really, my main question is, how could anyone have ever doubted Mattia Binotto? I mean, the dude's a genius. He's completely turned this whole team around.
I wish I could just clip all
no.
ever said about it.
Okay, I will explain this kind of analytically, and I will tell you why I think they have turned around as much as they have. And that is the guy that I've been pointing out on this show many times, and that is Lauren Menkes. Since he has come onto that team, the trajectory and the confidence and the technical savvy has turned around. That dude was one hell of a pickup for Ferrari, and Mattia should be thanking and whatever he wants to do, go buy him a nice thing of Italian wine because that's the reason I think they're up there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. But big Binotto guy now, so I'm super excited about it. But as far as each of their days, I thought Leclerc perfect, great start, got in front of Max as he needed to, and then laps 17 through 19 was some of the best on-track battles that we've seen in the last few years. So clean and it was so awesome. I was like standing up, screaming, cheering, yelling obscenities, and then screaming again as Leclerc would pass them each time.
I mean, you had to think Max was genuinely surprised when, after he made the move, that Charles was right back on him that quickly.
Yeah, and then especially in the last couple of years, whenever Charles has had that lead, like at Silverstone or something, and then Lewis is hunting him down, and then ultimately passes him, and there's no chance for him to come back. And this year, it's like he was able to come back each time, and it was awesome to see. They're amazing pit stops. I already mentioned before. Hopefully, that's a thing that's going to carry throughout the year for Ferrari because they've always been, I have anxiety of pit stops for a reason.
Was 2.4 their fastest?
I think it was 2.4. Yeah.
Okay.
Going head to head against Red Bull at the same time.
Yeah.
Great moment.
Yeah.
That's when Checo was like 2.6, and
yeah,
that was much needed there. And then also huge for Charles, at least after that safety car, because his biggest issue the whole race was sector 1. Max would beat him routinely by like 4/10, 5/10 every single sector 1. And then when that safety car came back off, Charles hit a purple sector 1, and that was huge. He ended up going purple on that lap, hit the fastest lap right there, and then just kind of put it out of reach. Well, as soon as he was outside of that DRS of Max after those battles, then it was pretty much over. He was pulling away. You were about to say something, John? I
mean, Max didn't do himself any favors on that restart either. He pulled that bullshit that he did in Abu Dhabi last year, trying to run up basically beside Leclerc, ended up pinching himself into the corner and gave himself a terrible exit. So, like I've said, the enemy of my enemy, Leclerc Ferrari is clearly in the head.
And just, I mean, to Leclerc's credit, he hit that right at the sweet spot. Like, you could not have asked. Like, if you're going to throw that at him, that's how you counter it. Well done, Charles, for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I had his onboard on one of the side screens all day until the very end there. And it just, I mean, it just looked so smooth and just under control and confident his entire drive. It just looked like a nice Sunday drive he was going on. There's those few, action sequences that we talked about after the pit stops. But, I mean, the majority of the race, he was just doing his thing and just crushing it in a car that looked absolutely amazing. Class of the field, I thought. And, you got to take your advantages where you can. They literally could not have gotten more points this weekend than they did. And their nearest challengers, I think, right now are Red Bull, as they showed. And now they've got a huge lead on them after one race. So that's the way you want to start. The season's looking pretty damn good. I have not yet run out of Ferrari Kool-Aid, and that's insane because I've been chugging the shit, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
And I just want to say, I think this is one of those races that does prove, yet again, that Leclerc is something special. We talked a lot about Leclerc versus Sainz last year, and I still think Sainz will come back, and I think he'll win a race this year as well, and be a little bit more competitive with Leclerc. But at one point, him and Verstappen were like 15 seconds up the road from Sainz, and he was just in qualifying and in the race, just getting that something extra out of the car consistently. So just excellent job all the way around from Leclerc.
Andy, you can say something nice about him too now.
No, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, it was a sublime, very controlled, but he got his elbows out when he had to. And like I said, that move at the end when Max tried to pull the same Abu Dhabi move, and he just floored him. Like, it was like, I literally said, once I watched him cross the line, I said, well, that's over with. Thanks for playing, Max. That didn't work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, heck of a drive. I mean, both guys. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Sainz has a more straightforward weekend, because apparently he was kind of complaining that it wasn't good. But if that's not good and it's P2, that's pretty damn impressive nonetheless.
Most definitely. John, any closing thoughts on the podium before we go to our first break? Only break?
No, yeah. I mean, it's for Red Bull to look like they had clearly the race pace all leading up to today. Over Ferrari, it was impressive to see just how well maintained, especially Leclerc's side of the garage looked. Like I said a second ago, clearly they're in the head of Red Bull. The safety car restart, I think, was a big one. Pit stops, they had the edge on there, which I think is going to blow Red Bull away when they go back and look at this. And even with Max, I mean, the three dives into turn one, the fact that he didn't make any of them, fully stick coming out of that short stint right after turn one there, tearing up tires. But then the fact that he wasn't even willing to make the adjustment, you would think that if he would be able to just stay on Leclerc's ass through turn one and then hit that second DRS, likely could have had the advantage. He pulled that move on Hamilton. Was it last year? I think it was. It's just, I think they're scrambling right now, and the fact that they're now 44 points behind Ferrari and the constructors, it's there's going to be some shuffling. A lot of papers getting thrown up in the air tonight. Back at Red Bull. So yeah, pretty damn cool. Been a long time since we've seen a Ferrari 1-2 of any sorts. So we'll give them credit for that one for sure.
All right, with that, we're going to take our break, pay some bills around here, and we'll be right back to talk standings, emails, and predictions. See you then. All right, welcome back to Season 4, Episode 7 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix race review, where we're talking about Ferrari's amazing 1-2 finish. And now I'm going to throw it to John to recap our driver standings. Take it away, sir.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but in P1, we have Ferrari, Charles Leclerc with 26 points, 25 for the race, and the fastest lap, giving him that extra point there. As James said earlier, maximizing their points with Carlos Sainz in P2 with 18, giving them a total of 44 points on the day. Lewis Hamilton, again, the shock, P3, Russell P4, K-Mag P5, Haas in 5th. Wow, it still blows my mind. Bottas 6th, Ocon 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Alonso 9th, and Zhao in 10th. A lot of mixes up there. So move it over to Andy to break down a very shocking start to the Constructors as well.
Yeah, so in P1, with as we all said, with maximum points is Ferrari on 44 points. In second place is Mercedes on 27 points. In third place, enjoy this while it's here, because I hope it sticks. Haas Ferrari in third place with 10 points. In fourth place is Alfa Romeo Ferrari in ninth place with 9 points. Fifth is Alpine on 8 points. Sixth is AlphaTauri on 4 points. 7, 8, and 9, and 10. Aston Martin, Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull all with 0 points.
Oof. Harsh. All right, so we got some fan emails. Thanks to everybody that emailed and DM'd us with these questions. I'm going to hand it over to Deanna to go through those.
Yeah, so starting with Jamie Street asks, please let me know how both Red Bull power units went out at pretty much the same time without them showing any signs during testing. Are teams allowed to start with a fresh power unit after preseason testing? Also, I'd assume Red Bull and other teams would push the limits on their power units during testing to know their limitations. Is that not the case? I think first, James, you were talking about the issue that might not be their engine. And then I feel like Andy could probably touch on the engine and testing bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could run however many power units you want during testing. That is unlimited. I remember some of the McLaren Honda years, they literally had, I think, 10 or 15 power units in boxes outside.
How
and
that
I think
turned out.
They burned through a lot of them. I remember that. So yeah, but I mean, when you start this year, once you finally get into Park Fermé, that's your first actual engine that goes into your pool. So we're allowed to start with a fresh one. So everybody started with a fresh power unit going into this race. The issue, as we kind of talked about it, I think comes down to that fuel pump, and apparently all the teams were struggling with this. The FIA let some teams get a chance to change them out. Obviously, Red Bull chose not to, and it was it was a supplied part from the FIA that failed today. So I don't know that it was something that was because. It probably was because it was really the first time we were really doing a full race distance run, and finally the reliability showed up. So I would assume the FIA are going to get on that and try to fix it, because if that keeps happening, that's going to the teams will not be quiet about that if that's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Rachel Fleming says, new season and a worrying race for a few teams. What do you guys think will leave Bahrain, or who do you guys think will leave Bahrain the most worried? Red Bull for reliability or McLaren for the pace? Also, K-Mag getting the 5th. Points for Haas and more points than they've had in the last 2 years, which is a great point. Yeah, I think they've only had 3 in the last 2 years. But I think we've touched on McLaren's pace a little bit earlier. But does anybody have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I'd be more worried if I was McLaren than Red Bull.
Yeah.
Like a lot more worried.
Yeah, no, I mean, from where one is to where the other one is, yeah, the standings don't show that justice really.
Yeah, you'd rather have pace and blow up than have not pace.
Not literally blow up.
Yes. Don't mean that literally. Don't at me, please.
All right, next up, I can't speak. Josh Wilson says, do you think that McLaren would have fared better if they had stuck with the Renault engine? Or do you think that this is all down to aero / the chassis? And that all the Mercedes-powered cars languishing at the bottom is just a coincidence? So we talked a bit about the Mercedes engine, that it might be down in power. Anybody have any comments on the aero on those cars as well?
Well, I would want to watch more of the onboards from like Aston Martin and Williams to see if they're all struggling in the slow speed corners too, because they all kind of have similar aero concepts. At least it kind of looks like, to an extent. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm not ready to say this is all a Mercedes power unit thing with all of those teams at this point. I do think the aero, the avenue that they went down, or the lack of development is probably where all of those teams are at right now.
Yeah. I did see something on at least Aston Martin. They were one of the teams that had awful porpoising issues. So they raised the ride height, and they think that they're losing up to 3/4 of a second per lap. So, if they went 1/4 of a second or 3/4 of a second faster in qualifying, they would have been in the top 10. So, but they don't think that there's a short-term solution to that issue, but if they can get it figured out, we'll see.
And I also wonder if McLaren did too, because now that I'm just thinking back on it, on Friday when I was watching Lando's onboards, he was scraping around the front stretch something god awful. Like it was almost not watchable. Yeah. It was scraping so bad. But by Saturday and Sunday, it was much less. So they may have had to also raise their ride height a little bit, which in a ground effect car, you got to get that floor as close to the ground as you can. And that would explain slow speed corner deficiencies.
Yep. All right. And last, we have answered all these questions, but I just want to say a quick thanks to East Coast Shark fans for writing us in a few questions as well. But we have covered those. So that wraps up our fan questions.
All right, very good. Thank you, Deanna. Let's move into our weekly awards. And for that, we always start with rubbish. And I think I'll go with you first, Andy. What do you got?
I'm going to throw this one out to the FIA simply because we waited so long for this lovely report. We didn't necessarily get a chance to talk about it. I tried to live tweet whatever I could quickly read and turn around. And then by the time I was done, I'm like, we knew all of this. It was 7 pages of nothing really new, other than I think the only thing that was really new was we learned that the process of identifying who was lapped was actually a manual process, which also drives me up the frickin' wall. So how can that be right in the area where Formula One is supposed to be the pinnacle of technology? So fine, they're fixing it. Great. But fine. If this puts a underline under that race and we can all kind of move from it, fine. But very underwhelming report.
Which blows my mind, Edie, because if you know like 5 cars are lapped, then clearly everyone behind them would also be lapped.
Right.
That's just how racing works.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, it was just Mercedes withdrew the appeal, so nothing was ever going to really change.
Yeah.
But I'm just, excited to put 2021 behind us. It was an exciting season when it happened, but it was very emotionally draining, I guess. So I'm happy. We're off to a great start now, and I just want to focus on this.
I still haven't gotten through the first episode of Drive to Survive yet, so if that tells you anything.
Don't worry about it.
I switched to F2, the chase. It's much better. I heard James, you mentioned that the other day as well. That's what Drive to Survive, I think, should be moving forward.
That one in the
more
MotoGP
chronological
one on,
order and
the
MotoGP
the whole bouncing
one
back and forth across
seasons
or across races. Never know what race we're at, what part of the season. It's too much. So definitely check out that. It's on F1 TV. If you,
I got to figure out if I can save those episodes to my iPad so I can watch them on the plane in a few days because I want to catch up on that now that there's no races.
I feel like you might be asking a lot for F1
TV.
considering
Definitely
that
are.
they barely even got through what
Because
qualifying.
I'm pretty sure
Seven Championship.
I've checked before to see if I could like download a race to watch it, like an old race to watch on the plane, but I couldn't do that, so I doubt I can. But
Yeah, I don't think you can, but
fingers
wishful
crossed.
thinking.
But Deanna, and to all you really, but I think the report came out, and I was kind of hoping we were going to move past it. Like I mentioned, I think maybe in the preview episode or last week, whatever it was. But I think there is a bright spot there because now it seems like a lot of the Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes fans are converting over to Charles Leclerc and Ferrari fans. So now they'll just be focused on that, and not what happened last year. So that's got me excited.
The enemy of my enemy.
I'll accept all these fake ass.
John, I'm going to find the Mayan translation for you, and I'm going to have that.
Plenty of room in the post for all you bandwagon jumpers, but different discussion for a different day.
If it means that Christian Horner is a pissed off, miserable person the rest of the season, I'll fucking wear some red on the show if that's what it takes, because making his life miserable brings me joy. So whatever it takes at this point, I'm all in for the get the voodoo doll out. Whatever we gotta do, send bad vibes his way. So
all right, Deanna, who do you got for rubbish this weekend?
My rubbish is going to something I complained all weekend about, and I couldn't let it go, and I will never let it go, and it's the graphics.
Oh, I know where this is going.
They're horrible. There's so many things F1 could work on or do or put time and resources in. The one thing that they didn't need to touch was the graphics. They were so good. Everything was so clear and understandable. I thought they looked good, and they're just driving me up a wall. And like the little tiny little the font isn't even smaller, but it looks smaller because they decided to do italics and spread it all out. And so it's like, especially in qualifying, it's really hard to track. They ruined my data screen, and I'm very sad about it. And everything about it makes the whole experience a little bit less, especially qualifying. I was just it was a great session, and I was just taken out of it because I was like sitting there trying to like squint at the data screen to figure out whose lap time was whose and whose sectors were whose, because they just they tried to make it look pretty and they took out all the functionality. So anyway, I could go on about that for like an hour.
And apparently, if you said a purple mini sector, it showed up that you had a purple sector on the TV.
And the glitches were the worst bit. The timing tower stopped working, I think, in qualifying and the race. You had, at one point, I think it was in like FP3, they showed Mick getting like a purple sector 2 and then showed his lap time over a second under what it actually was. During the race today, they flashed Perez as the fastest lap right after Leclerc had set all 3 purple sectors.
Yeah.
And just like, it was just absolute chaos. It was a disaster.
Maybe if they had televised the first 3 days of testing, then they could have worked out these kinks then.
Yeah.
But yeah, at first blush, I was like, oh, these look kind of nice. And I'm a sucker for new, shiny things. And then all the glitches were just, oh, man. It was so stupid.
I do think they will fix some of them over the course of it. They may even ditch that font because I can remember a few years ago in Australia, they were actually trying to put all the mini sectors in as like in the lap counter, and then that went away like after 1 week. So.
Well, they used to do, and the old graphics too, you could see the mini sectors ticking along at the bottom, which was nice. And then like the whole sector would fill out. But now it just does it at one point. So you can't really tell where in the sector they are if you just kind of glance down. Like everything about it is less functional than the old version. And it's just driving me up a wall.
And I know John was missing the the Halo overlay.
Yeah, where's the Halo graphics?
Yeah, I don't know.
Which
There's
they
love the Halo
there's
graphics.
no
Replacement for
AWS. AWS seems to be gone.
Yeah, I didn't see a single AWS, which is really weird. Considering they have their own pit box and everything.
I didn't realize that till right now. That's interesting.
And the Halo graphics. I
And
mean,
that's
because
fine.
that's the
That
best
was
part is I
easily,
still like to see the driver's helmet. I still like to see what his hands are doing, how he's working the wheel. If it's a night race, I want to see the dash because I love seeing the dash. And I wish we could see it more often. And they're in addition to the graphics just being shit and hard to read, and me squinting to see what tires they're on. They take up like the battle graphics take up like a quarter, so much screen real estate. It's ridiculous. I'm like, you're blocking half the action here just based on these graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated the AWS like battle forecast because I feel like it took some of the suspense out of things. But yeah, just the overall presentation was so much cleaner. And then I noticed that today, like it was like an awkward period of time when the pylon was gone. And I'm like, okay, yeah, clearly it's glitching. And then the lap counter went away too. We just had F1 up there, and I'm like, yeah, some intern was like, grab whatever graphic works and throw it up there because everything's breaking.
Yeah. I just don't know how you go from such a stable system that I've never seen an issue with before to this. Like, I just don't know how that passed all of their kind of quality assurance tests to get to the point where it went into production. And I'm hopeful that like F2 and F3 still have the old graphics. I'm hoping at least just for a couple of races that they revert back until they can figure out their issues and kind of improve it, because it is not in a good state right now.
Well, F1 was busy, preparing the report that we just talked about all off season, so they were distracted in other ways.
I know FOM just came back with an agreement with the people who used to do it before. Tata Communications, they just re-signed a deal with them. I don't know if this was a product of that. I don't think so, because it's only been a couple weeks. So Tata has done a great job in the past of getting this right. So hopefully that influence happens sooner than later, because I agree with you. It was frustrating. Like, if I wasn't watching like timing and stuff on my iPad, I would have been just right there with you.
Yep.
All right, so for my rubbish, Andy, you might want to unplug your headphones for a quick second. I'm giving mine to McLaren for pretty much all the reasons we've already discussed. Not a good start to the season, which I like McLaren. I like Zach Brown a lot. I like both their drivers. So it sucks to see them where they're at right now, but I'm fairly confident that they'll be fighting for the upper end of the midfield by the end of the year. So hopefully a year of development is in store for them. John, who do you have for rubbish this weekend?
I have all three of you as my rubbish. All that shit talking you did on the predictions about me putting McLaren in P8. And look where they're at right now. So, yes, I know it's one race, and Andy and I will argue about that. But they look worse than Mercedes, and that's saying something. And, yeah, I mean, I didn't get the opportunity to be on that episode, but, coming out of years where there was significant change, Andy and I even talked about it, like, McLaren doesn't have the best track record of years immediately following a significant change. I know they ran a new Merc engine last year and it did well, but 2009, coming into the hybrid era, obviously a lot of that was Honda, but that car wasn't pretty to begin with either. So, we'll see. I'm wearing the hat tonight, partially because I love the team and partially to support Andy. I feel like he needs good vibes over there after today. I hope I'm wrong on that, but I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about just kind of what we've seen in the testing and things of that nature. But in all seriousness, I agree with kind of all you guys in McLaren, the FIA, the graphics for sure. I kind of, since those have all been mentioned, I kind of want to give it to the TV director again, because we had a few awkward moments of crowd shots. And some old guy, like, I think he was he the flag guy, the checker flag guy? I
think that was John Alesi.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm like, why are we focusing on this guy? There's a battle going on, and I'm seeing the side, the side of some dude's head sitting in the booth. The crowd shots. I'm like, I had a serious flashbacks of, was it like Saudi Arabia or something last year where we had some like extremely awkward like crowd shots? I was trying to think. It was near the end of last season.
It was Qatar.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yes. And it was definitely very much filled in. And
the tens and tens of fans that were let into that arena.
Yeah,
all got some TV time.
I knew it was the desert. I forgot about Qatar. Yeah, it was definitely Qatar. So it gave me flashbacks today of that. I was waiting for a Lance Stroll Monaco situation to happen. Thankfully, it wasn't quite that bad, but it wasn't pretty.
If you notice there, John's kind of emulating this hero. He started that off by separating himself from his co-workers, his friends, much like Lewis Hamilton did with all the other drivers on the parade route or the parade lap today. So just interesting how these little things start to connect together, but maybe just I'm too observant. I don't know.
Hey, it's when someone's the GOAT, you take note, you follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Analysis paralysis. Deanna, who do you have?
I am going to go with Mercedes. Again, I never think it's a good idea when you pit Lewis Hamilton of all people first. The last time they did that was Monaco last year, and that obviously blew up in their face. And then to go into the hards, which everybody all weekend thought wasn't going to go well, and it didn't. And then to leave George Russell out there for 6 more laps longer than Hamilton, and he was going 3 seconds per lap slower than Hamilton was. So, I mean, they all got lucky, but I think just that middle stint was just a little questionable.
I am right there with you with Mercedes as my analysis paralysis. And you did a good job wrapping it up, so I don't have to say anything. John, who do you got analysis paralysis?
Yeah, I'll go with the trifecta on that one. Hard to argue with those points.
And Andy, variety is the spice of life. Can you help us out here?
I'm going to actually give this one to my McLaren team just for the start selection of tires. When I hear the team radio goes, everybody else is on softs except for you and Daniel, I just kind of went, that's probably not going to go well. And it didn't. As Lando drops 6 positions on the start lap, probably because he was on the wrong tire. So for that, I have to call my own team out for that one.
So, Andy, how I never really thought about this, I guess, before now with the QT rule being around for so long. What's the process for declaring your tire, and is that a public submission at the time? Does everyone immediately know what you're doing?
The teams all know about maybe 10 minutes beforehand, because I do believe there is some sort of a document that goes out that says this is what you're going to start on, because they all tend to know right before all the covers come off. So there's usually it's an engineer back at least for McLaren's, it's back at the MTC that says everyone's on this type of tire, and he takes Lando through all of that about maybe 7 minutes before the race starts.
So I guess then a follow up, would they know that every other team was going softs when they make the decision to go mediums, or is that part still?
I don't know that.
I imagine they probably have a good idea, and that was them trying to do something different.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go off strategy. Yeah. And as soon as I heard that, I just went, well, that's not going to go well.
All right, moving on to our dark horse of the day. I'm going K-Mag. That was a very easy selection for me. John, who do you got?
Yeah, got to give the American team some love after many years of shitting on this team. Drove by the headquarters today, and on my way back into Charlotte, and gave it a nice looking forward. I don't know how they did on the NASCAR side. I haven't watched any of that yet. But yeah, good on them. Hopefully they'll have a banner. I'm sure my neighbor who works there will be quite happy tomorrow for the first time in a long time. And Gunter is known to shop around these parts. So I told my neighbor we should go and hang out there with some banners or something. And he probably wouldn't like that, but it would be comical in nature to have some praise for Haas around the hometown around here. So.
Okay, Deanna, who you got?
Hey, Mag, just Haas as a whole. Would not have predicted that even before this weekend, so.
Yeah, it's a shame that Mick got spun, because I think that he had some decent pace for sure. He said the car was off balance after the spin, so I don't know exactly what. I didn't see any damage on there, but he definitely said the balance changed. But yeah, I think they could have had even a better day had it not been for that. So.
And then Andy, who do you got?
I put in the document tie between K-Mag and Bottas, but I don't like Bottas that much, so I'm going to give it to K-Mag and just go with it. Go to the U.S.
I will have to say, it's like defense of Bottas, that was...
He did come back through the field.
He went from,
14, so
the first
lap
was awful, but to go, 14 to 6, that is not something we normally see from him. So I'm hopeful that the actual racecraft bit doesn't.
All three Bottas fans are going to be so pissed at you tomorrow, Andy, when they hear this.
That's what I'm here
for. Your number
for.
one fan.
Filling your mentions.
Shout out, buddy. Yeah, you're going to get some serious hate mail tomorrow.
All right, driver of the day. Start with you, Andy. What do you got?
Oh, this has got to be Charles Leclerc. Couldn't really ask for more throughout the whole weekend, so well done.
Very true. Deanna?
Charles Leclerc.
That's right. And John?
I'll say Charles Leclerc. I don't really like hearing all this 2019 redemption, because that motor was cheating like you wouldn't believe. But that point aside, I think this motor, I don't see any big puffs of smoke coming out when they start the thing up. So hopefully it's legal. But yeah, he definitely drove a good race. And again, he's in the head of Red Bull, and that makes me smile. So
much like his point scoring performance this weekend, a clean sweep, because I too have Charles Leclerc as driver of the day in a shocking turn of events. All right, Andy, I'm going to hand it off to you to talk about our prediction and results. I demand a recount.
Well, unless I have completely botched this is how I see it. John, I have you at 3 points. You got 1 for the pole sitter, Charles Leclerc, 1 for P1 on the podium with Charles Leclerc, and you got a bonus pick. I also have 3 points. I got P2 on the podium with Carlos Sainz, fastest lap driver, Charles Leclerc, and fastest race lap time. Deanna tried to price rate me, but went the wrong direction. Deanna, you ended up with 2 points. You did get 1 for the prop bet, and you had the fastest quali time. So you get 2 points there. And James, you had 1 point you had 2 points in total, 1 point for the pole sitter, Charles Leclerc on P1, and also on the podium as well.
I think we need to pull a Force India Racing Point situation and investigate Deanna. Those post-time submissions was a little questionable. Little questionable. The Price is rating. I saw the 1/1000th off of Andy and I's times.
It's just a coincidence.
Why, whatever do you mean?
You can't prove anything.
Deanna, so me and you are tied for not first place in this right now. I picked 8, 9, and 10 for the bonus pick, so you got to pick them right now for next week. What are your bonus pick selections?
4, 5, and 20. Been a long time.
Ouch.
I was going to say, it's been a while since we've done those.
We did them the whole first half of last season.
That's just going to be like one of those, just throw a dartboard at the wall and see what sticks, because
Like 8, 9, and 10 isn't the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be one of those years.
Yeah, we'll figure out a prop bet for next week. So if anybody out there, any listeners have a good idea for our prop bet next week, make sure you DM us or send us an email. Might be able to use that. But yeah, Deanna, I'll go to you first for any final thoughts on the race weekend or what's upcoming in just a few days.
No, I guess excited for Saudi Arabia. I can't believe we were only there about 3 races ago. That was definitely one of the most chaotic things I've ever witnessed. So I guess I'm ready for more. Probably not, but I'm going to tell myself I am.
John, final thoughts?
Yeah, good start to the season. Seems like the package is working so far as designed. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it. We did see clusters of cars, and they weren't just because of DRS trains, which was nice to see. Saw some overtaking, which was nice. Yeah, so far we're off to a good start. And I think we're in for a good season. Hopefully we get something, I wouldn't say like last season, but something as exciting at least. So
yeah, definitely want to see a few more races like this to start the year to keep the newer fans that got so engaged with last season to pick right up where we left off there. It would be good for the sport. Ferrari being back is, I think, good for the sport. Definitely good
we didn't mention the results aren't final yet, but we do have our Outlap F1 Fantasy League, and I am pretty much in last. I think Andy's holding the way. You're in 10th. The rest of us
somewhere
are
in like the midfield, I guess.
Struggling. Yeah, I blame the Hulkenberg substitution, but
wouldn't have been any better. I chose Red Bull as my team, and I had Gasly in there as well, so I got screwed by all 3 retirements.
At the last second, I threw a team together thinking it was a set it and forget it type situation, and now I find out today that I have to change it every week, so we'll see how long.
Yeah, Leclerc's value is obviously gonna jump significantly
as well Ferrari
next week. So if he was on your team, you may not be able to pick him next week.
He was.
You're gonna have to work your $100 million in appropriate fashion. I don't know if you can still join. I think you can still join. So if you're interested, like I said, I'm in dead last with virtually no points, so you could probably hop in now and still easily
because it goes
beat me.
Week to week. I think you can still pop in and just
so hop in and if you're interested, Andy, I think you can put the link and code in the show description. yeah, I think it'll make for some great. I think maybe we'll do a little Discord channel for those members that want to be in there, and we'll have some good shit talking throughout the year. But I'm glad I have 3 points on here because I have essentially, I think I may have only gotten 3 points in that fantasy league and sitting in 35th place right now. So not great.
Yeah, make sure to check that out. And then next week we've got Jeddah, as we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I won't be on the review episode with you guys, so I'm not going to be able to talk about that Ferrari 1-2 with you, unfortunately. I'll be watching it in sunny Florida, hopefully with a few cocktails with that 1 o'clock race start time. Looking forward to that. So, Andy, any final thoughts from you? And then take us away, please.
Yeah, we rack, we go again. At least as a McLaren fan, I'm just happy to say we're done with Bahrain. Bring on something with a little less low-speed corners, and let's see what happens. But I do think, and I know that there's a lot of McLaren fans that are really either disillusioned or pissed off, or, I mean, I've seen it all on Twitter throughout the whole course of the day. The team's not going to give up on anything. These are good people in it. They're going to get to the bottom of things. And I hope that they're going to come good by the end of the season. If not, then you're going to see heads roll, and they're going to make changes. This is not the Ron Dennis era. This is not people that are going to keep throwing things at things that don't work. Zach's too smart for that. So team's going to get better. That's at least what I'm putting my linchpin on for right now. I don't think this is going to be correlative of the whole year, but we shall see. But that's the great part. And we've got a fascinating rest of the season coming up. We're going to go to Jeddah. We're going to have and all that comes with it, good and bad. Interesting to see what drone formations we get next week.
Yeah, hopefully get a good drone show and a good light show to go with it.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll look forward to that. We'll bring this all with you. We'll have our preview episode out mid next week, and we'll be all here. Obviously, sans James, because he's going to be taking some much-needed time off and getting some rest and recharge. So for all of us here, super fun to do every week. And as always, may all your laps be fast.